The biggest clowns that try to talk about transitioning and trans issues are the cisgendered gay men.
For my gays out there, here's how to take advantage of being gay to get a job.
I'm a non-binary, bisexual, learning specialist and teacher. These are the conversations that you're very afraid of.
And if you are a cis person, you absolutely, how dare you have the audacity to think that you know what the trans means?
Hey everybody, I'm Brad Polumbo, and welcome back to the Damage Control podcast, where we're reclaiming the debate over LGBT issues from the crazy people on either extreme that are taking it over. My guest today is Clarkson Lawson, a right-wing gay TikToker and return guest and fan favorite. Today, we're talking about Grindr going all in on woke homophobia, TikTok finally waking up politically, Ben Shapiro getting accidentally destroyed in a debate over gay marriage, and so much more. As always, that includes reacting to insane LGBT TikToks. Buckle in, and if you're new here, do consider subscribing. We just passed 105,000 on YouTube, and it's growing so fast. And don't forget to like and comment with your thoughts as we go along. Now let's get into it and catch up with Clarkson and talk about what's going on at Grindr. Clarkson, welcome back to Damage Control.
Hey, Brad. Thank you for having me.
So it's been a minute. I know. What have you been up to since you were last on the show a couple months ago after your Jubilee debate?
I obviously have a new setup. I've got a new chair behind me. I moved.
It looks like a throne.
Yeah, I need to stop calling it a chair because it is a throne. It cost me a couple grand. So it's an expensive throne. But I've got a new show launching later on this month, which is why I've got a new setup. I just moved, but really nothing has changed. I've just been making content on TikTok and Instagram and then ready to move into the YouTube game.
Awesome. Yeah, well, people will have to head over to your channel and subscribe so they can see whatever you've got coming up next. But today we've got a bunch of things on deck to talk about. First and foremost, the cursed hellscape known as Grindr. I mean, I have thankfully not had to have this app in a very long time, but it doesn't surprise me that they are at the cutting edge of woke insanity. I don't know if it shocked you.
No, it doesn't shock me. I don't have the app. I've had my experience on it before, but, I'm in a new era of my, conservative-esque self. So I don't get on Grindr, but I'm not surprised because when I was on the app, it was a cesspool of not just degeneracy, but woke ideologues running amok. So I'm not surprised that the creators of it and that the company itself has fallen victim to this.
They did an ad a while ago where they brought in random Grindr users and half of them were females. And I was like, what is going on in this universe? But yeah, go ahead.
It's not just Grindr. I mean, I do have Tinder. I have other dating apps. I have Hinge, and I'll be swiping or just looking through and I'm like, wait, is that a woman? I'm confused. And look, to each their own, y'all do what you want to do. It doesn't affect me that much. I'm not freaking out about it, but it's a little invasive when I'm supposed to be, filtering because I'm gay. Am I not allowed to be gay anymore? Is something wrong with that? I'm just confused as to why women are on my dating apps. But
you're definitely not allowed to on Grindr because they're in the news this week because of new settings they have where they have eliminated the ability to sort for men seeing other men. This sounds like a parody, right? But the comedian Andrew Doyle, who also hosts a GB News show, posted this on Twitter. This is Grindr, a gay hookup app, openly shaming gay people for being gay. That's how far this new homophobia has spread. And he put a picture of Grindr's FAQs, and I went and verified this. It says, why can't I filter for cis men or cis women? Answer, when designing gender settings on Grindr, it was important to us to not further perpetuate discrimination and harm for the trans and non-binary community. For this reason, we allow filtering based on gender. You can specify that you want to see men or women, but this will include all men or all women, because trans men are men and trans women are women. You can also filter for trans and non-binary people, as we know it's critical for this community to be able to find each other easily.
So it's discrimination to not want to sleep with a trans person. Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, to want to filter them out.
Let me stop.
Yeah.
I'm conservative. I can't say that. No, I guess to filter them out, it's discriminatory. But what I found interesting about this is that you can filter for them, but you can't filter them out. So it's okay. Like, they've recognized that they are different from gay people, but they also will not allow gay people to have that same luxury.
It's not just that they're allowed to filter to see only trans or non-binary people. It's that Grindr acknowledges this as important for them to be able to find each other. However, it's not important or acceptable for gay males to want to filter to see other gay males. There's something very creepy about this.
Well, I mean, it all comes down to the fact that there are people that we have allowed in our community that believe that gender and sex are entirely separate and that biological reality doesn't exist. And at some point, I mean, we both knew this was going to come to a head, because being gay means you're attracted to people of the same sex. If you don't believe that a man is bound by his sexual organs, then it's completely at odds with being gay. So, I mean, I can't say I'm surprised when things like this happen, but I mean, it's disappointing to watch it in real time.
Yeah, I thought some of the replies to this on Twitter were kind of funny. So we have a couple snarky comments here, including one that reads, "It's critical for trans and non-binary people to be able to find each other, but it's not critical for gay people to be able to find each other on this gay dating app." Another person said, "What I found interesting was the hypocritical admission that they were different enough to warrant needing a filter for themselves, but arguing that they are the same by prohibiting others from filtering them out." Another person said, "I hate the hypocrisy that gay men and lesbians aren't allowed to have our own apps and services that don't include trans, but trans are allowed to exclude cis, yuck, people when they want to." I find this deeply ironic, because they really are taking a total double standard here. They're saying it's discriminatory and hateful and invalidates trans people to want to screen them out, but it is important and necessary that they be able to screen them in.
Right.
I don't know. I'm so glad I don't have to deal with this stuff anymore.
I know. I mean, I do, but maybe one day I won't. I'm really tired of and obviously this doesn't represent all trans people. I always want to preface that, because I don't have any animosity towards anybody who's trans, but you know, there's radicals in every community. I'm just getting really tired of the coddling of this specific group of people as if they're incapable of acknowledging reality. Like, if you're trans, you're trans. You are not a gay man. You are similar in some aspects. We have things in common, but you're not a gay man. And if acknowledging that reality is detrimental to you as a person, the solution is not to make us accommodated. It's to get you help, because that's the truth. Like, it's the objective truth, and it's exhausting. Like, why can't they just have their own category? You're in our space already. Like, just have a category and then have it at that. But I guess that's not enough. It's never enough.
Yeah, I don't have any inherent issue with trans men being on there, because there are some gay or bisexual men, I think mostly bisexual men, who are interested in that, and that's fine, but it should at least be transparent and obvious and only there like for people that are actually interested in that. And they're essentially saying it's problematic to be traditionally gay now. Like that is not even considered woke. That is now considered oppressive, essentially, to be a male who's attracted to other males. Or, in a really more hilarious example, the colonization of lesbian dating apps by biological males has truly been something to behold. So the lesbian dating app called Her sent message, this was like last year or something. I talked about it with Ariel at the time, but they basically sent a message that they're going to allow anyone of any sex on their app. And if you're a lesbian who doesn't agree with that or want that, you should leave their app. Be gone, TERFs, is what they said. So I just find it really disturbing that the gender ideology is basically undermining even the niche spaces that same-sex attracted people were able to carve out for themselves. It's like they can't even just let us have this thing or these spaces. It's now problematic. These things that were considered, radical and progressive and liberatory are now problematic. I can't keep up.
Yeah, and I feel like this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I mean, obviously, the whole LGB without the TQ is growing very rapidly, and whether or not you agree with the semantics surrounding that entire statement is irrelevant. But I feel like this might be where people really get sick of it, because I mean, I didn't go through everything I went through as a young gay man to now be told that if I don't sleep with somebody or date somebody or be open to dating someone with a vagina, that somehow I'm bigoted. I mean, if anybody's being bigoted here, it's the people who are trying to deny the reality of our sexuality. But
And if that's
I really
bigoted,
do, yeah.
If that's bigoted or transphobic, then okay, then I'm bigoted and transphobic. Like, you're watering down those terms to apply.
Right.
To
I've
anybody who's
accepted those
actually gay.
labels at this point.
Which is sad because there's genuinely hateful people in the world, but it's kind of, what they've done with racism and other things. They've thrown it around like candy on Halloween and reduced it to the point of meaninglessness. So now when I hear transphobic, I'm like 90% sure that it's probably going to be something perfectly sensible that they're referring to. And then 10% of the time they're referring to something that's actually hateful or mean-spirited, which is wrong, right? But they've totally, I think, destroyed their ability to actually call that out when they're basically saying that being actually gay is transphobic, is discriminatory to non-binary people or whatever. And I think it's the absolute opposite. I think what they're doing in the name of wokeness or open-mindedness is deeply homophobic, colonizing our spaces, invading them, and then saying that we're the bigots if we don't accept it. I mean, I don't love the comparison that people make to like Pray the Gay Away or conversion therapy, because obviously that was on a much more extreme and severe scale. But the fundamental idea behind it, that attraction actually is a mutable characteristic rather than a, immutable thing you can't change. Yeah, that is the same fundamental idea, and it's just as wrong and just as homophobic.
Yeah, and it also gives, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, whether it's racism, homophobia, or transphobia, they're giving a shield to the real transphobes, homophobes, and racists in our country when you label sensible people under those names. It's like, what do we call people who actually believe in racism? What do we call people who actually don't want gay or trans people to have rights? Is it the same term that you're going to call me for just simply being gay? Because now we don't have the language to identify these people anymore.
All right. Well, the next thing I want to get your thoughts on is this very frankly comical TikTok from a very famous gay TikToker, Spencer Wah, who, Clarkson, he's woke, he's super liberal, but he may be seeing the light at long last. Let's take a listen.
Now that it's tax season, let me talk my... Hi everyone, if you're new, welcome. If you're not new, bitch! It's time for the Daily Scrape! Bitch, honestly, where do I even begin? Because you mean to tell me that I work my ass off all year round, literally pouring my blood, sweat, and cooter cat into what I do, and now Uncle Sam wants a cut of what I've made? Babe, that is heinous. And what's even worse is you're using that fat-ass check that you've taken from me, Uncle Sam, to fund projects that I literally didn't sign off on and don't approve of. Also, not to mention the mind complexity of it all. I literally say this every single year, but why does the IRS and the government make doing taxes so unbelievably hard when they know how much we owe them? You mean to tell me you know the exact amount of money I owe you, but you just don't want to tell me? And if I get the calculations wrong and I don't pay enough, I can get sent to federal prison? Babe, you got me all the way. You can also have penalties added to your taxes if you don't pay enough, and they can even add interest to your taxes if you miss a due date. Meanwhile, we have billionaires who are rich as who barely even pay taxes, and that's because the entire system is fucking rigged, and these big corporations are able to dodge these taxes with fancy accountants and loopholes. On top of that, you want me to give you a big ass chunk of my earnings and then expect me to live off of the small amount of money I have left in this economy? Babe, gas in California is $6, and if you go to the grocery store for some basic necessities, that costs an arm and a leg. Like, I know for a fact if shit were happening in the late 16 or 1700s, we would be up in arms with the US government telling these bitches to give us our money back. And then we have bitches in the older generation that are literally 1 foot in the grave, so I don't even know why they're opening their mouths, being like, well, maybe if you worked harder, you'd actually be able to afford things. Bitch, when you were younger, you were able to buy a plot of land with a quarter and a head of lettuce. I can barely fill up my gas tank without worrying if I'm gonna miss a rent payment. We are not the same. The system is rigged, f the government, but I don't want to go to federal prison, so...
Oh my gosh, I love him. I don't even care. I'm obsessed with him now.
That's the thing. We always react to gay TikTokers negatively on this show. But go off, King. This guy is based.
I mean, the only thing I disagreed with was when he started dogging on the billionaires for having loopholes. I'm like, well, they contribute a lot more to society than you do, probably. But anyways, that's all ever conversation. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that people are finally starting to realize that, I guess, I don't even want to say conservative beliefs, but just like sensible beliefs surrounding economics and taxation can be adopted by anybody in the political spectrum. Liberals used to think, conservatively when it comes to tax policy. So I'd love to see more common sense liberals, rise up.
Yeah, but the only problem I have with this is, look, this is fire. This is straight up on point, relatable. The taxes I pay are insane. Almost all the money gets wasted, gets sent to fund things I don't believe in. It's completely spot on. However, people like this tell me they're not going to just lockstep still simp for Bernie the next day. They are. They really are. They are still going to support. He's complaining about $6 gas in California. Well, do you know what causes $6 gas in California where it's $3 everywhere else in the country? Guess what? Progressive policies, massive regulations and taxes and climate change, all sorts of policies. It's like the thing that frustrates me is sometimes they get it, right? Like they're so on TikTok, you see all these insanely based rants about inflation and how nobody can afford anything anymore. And the next TikTok is them saying, money isn't real, just print money. And I'm like, babe, the math isn't mathing. You're getting so close, and then you're ending up all the way back where you started. And that's really frustrating to watch.
It is. And then most of the time it's them demonizing capitalism, not even realizing that it's the opposite of capitalism that's causing these problems. And it's frustrating, and it's lack of education, but also I think it's also due to poor messaging from people on the right, because this proves that some ideas on the right side of the aisle can be popular. It's just we're not presenting them correctly. And I think that's where we have to take accountability of how we're sending our messaging out, because we're so hyper-focused on these social issues. And, the Republican Party is terrible with those, that the otherwise popular ideas aren't even being listened to by people who might actually adopt them.
Yeah, I mean, do you think somebody like Spencer here is really going to be open to modern right-wing messaging that is like so hostile to, I don't know, anything LGBT or anything increasingly, or is just so like Christian nationalist or all these other things that some pockets of the right are embracing? Like, of course not. And so if all they have on offer is the AOC style approach to politics, that's what they'll default into, both because they're not thinking very deeply about the issues, but also because there's a lack of a viable alternative. And so that's what I try to provide in my commentary, right? Is like socially moderate, but lots of right-wing actual policy beliefs that a lot more people are open to or can relate to than they can, somebody who thinks that the birth control pill should be illegal, or like all these, these crazy trad beliefs that we're seeing all the time. I see these influencers, right-wing influencers, talking about how we need to repeal the 19th Amendment. Like, babe, you sound crazy. And we're not going to make inroads with these people with any sort of messaging like that. But it is still frustrating to me to see them get so close to the point and then it still goes over their head. Like, yes, I agree. Everyone could afford things much better if huge chunks of every dollar they earn weren't going to be wasted by the federal government. But y'all are in lockstep support of the problems and politicians who literally want to double or triple that, who want to make it much bigger and much worse. So,
I mean, these are the same people, and I don't want to dog on him because I actually like this video, and I like that we have a positive sentiment towards a creator for once. But these are the same types of creators who will make a video shitting on the United States for not having free healthcare and paid maternity leave and all these things that countries in Europe may have, not realizing that requires more printing of money, more taxing. And it's like the same policies that you are supporting are causing the problem. So it is frustrating, and I wish that we could just like get a megaphone and scream in their faces, but I mean, they'd still probably not listen.
Yeah, and it's also kind of frustrating to hear them rant about like the corporations and the billionaires and how why is it so complicated and all of this. Like, that's actually, he's getting so close to libertarianism and he doesn't realize it, because it's like a very basic principle of libertarianism that complexity is a subsidy, in that like a really complicated tax code allows politicians to hide loopholes for their friends. Whereas if you had like a 10% flat tax, right, there's no need to pay TurboTax, to hire an accountant, to do any of this. There's no need for armies of lawyers and accountants to, find loopholes and how Jeff Bezos can hide his money in the Cayman Islands, or all this stuff they're so mad about is all a product of big government. It really is. And if you actually had limited, narrow government, you wouldn't have any of that. Yet they don't put 2 and 2 together. And it's just frustrating. But I do like to see actually common sense messaging actually going viral on TikTok. And, you and I are both on TikTok a lot and see it. And we see a lot of crazy stuff. But there's some good stuff on there, too. And this next thing I want to show you is from TikTok. It's a recent clip of a student debating Ben Shapiro on gay marriage. And I thought it was so fascinating because to me, it perfectly underscores the problem with the argument that people like Ben Shapiro make against gay marriage. Let's take a listen to this.
The argument against gay marriage is not even an argument against you living a life that you want to live or anybody else living a life that they want to live. The purpose of marriage for literally all of human history was the bearing and rearing of children. The definition of marriage on a fundamental level sort of shifted culturally in the 1960s into two people who love each other. I agree that under that rubric, gay people count, right? Two men can love each other, two women, obviously. But under the rubric of are all human relationships created equal in terms of their utility to the state? And the utility to the state is two parents make baby lives with married mom and dad. Then yes, of course, the form of marriage that ought to be subsidized is the form of marriage that produces children. And that's particularly true in a West that is currently reproducing at lower than replacement rates.
Do you have children? I presume you do have children.
4.
When they grow up and when they leave the home, are you going to seek a divorce having fulfilled the sole purpose of marriage? I'm not asking that sarcastic.
Got him.
He did. He really did. And it's kind of fun to watch Ben Shapiro, who honestly I do find interesting and I think is good at debating and often destroys college students. Yeah. To see them actually kind of pull one over on him was kind of cool. But I thought this was interesting because we see the right has become much more supportive of gay marriage now, but there are a lot of holdouts, particularly in conservative media. Folks like Ben Shapiro who oppose gay marriage, Michael Knowles who tried to rail against anybody who voted for the Respect for Marriage Act and say they should be kicked out of the GOP, and all this out of touch, outdated position and view. And it really, their arguments for it don't make any sense to me, right? This idea that, well, marriage is only about child rearing is just, maybe it was once true, but it's just not whatsoever true today. And we don't stop people who are infertile or have no interest or intention of having children from getting married, because marriage is a lot more than that now. It's got tax purposes. It's got power of attorney purposes. It's got healthcare and decisions purposes to it. It's about so many things that gay people deserve equal opportunity and access to beyond just child rearing. So this is the argument I always hear them make, and it's never made any sense to me, honestly.
Well, no, and I always thought that child rearing was a product of people being in union in front of God. I mean, that's what I always thought marriage was defined by in the Christian terms previously. So that would make child rearing not the sole purpose of marriage, just a product of a straight marriage, which completely negates the point that people are getting married just to have the traditional family unit. And I'm all for the traditional family unit. I'm not against that in any sense of the means, but it's just very interesting to me, the mental gymnastics that people will do to support this belief that me getting married somehow affects them in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I don't get it. Right.
Well, and I can perfectly understand and accept if your view is that, my religion doesn't view gay marriage. We're not going to do that in my church. We don't view that as legitimate. That's your right to believe that. But what I do have a problem with is what he's saying when he's talking about the state, he's talking about the government, right? And so what he actually supports is that it shouldn't be illegal for gay people to get married. He's very open about this. And look, some people believe that still. I don't think it makes them hateful or evil inherently, but it's a belief I still strongly disagree with and push back on for these reasons. And it's also even on its own terms, this argument doesn't make sense to me because, newsflash, Ben, gay people do bear and rear children in different ways, right? Are we just pretending adoption doesn't exist? There aren't hundreds of thousands of thriving, young, healthy adults out there who were raised by gay couples. I know multiple, just in my own personal experience and anecdotes. Then, of course, it's controversial, but there is surrogacy that people do.
I was going to say
and
that.
they raise children that way. Also, like lesbian couples, all they need is a sperm donor and they can raise and bear a child like nothing. So why, even under their rubric, why wouldn't lesbians be allowed to get married? It doesn't make any sense.
No, I mean, the argument falls apart when you actually examine it. But in order for Ben to stay consistent and hold his belief, because he doesn't want gay people to get married, in all respect to Ben Shapiro, I think he's a very smart man, they have to have this idea that marriage was created for the bearing of children. Because if that's not the basis of their argument, they don't have another argument. Like, I can't
maybe
see
it
when
once
that would win
was.
a debate.
Like, I'm not even disagreeing that historically that was the case, but it's just clearly not the case anymore.
Right. I mean, and it's argued against that a lot, but it's historically what the purpose of marriage was, especially even in the Christian community. But, either way, you can't debate that gay marriage should be illegal unless that's the foundation of your argument, which is why he's taking that stance.
It is, but, at least we've seen some backsliding on support for gay marriage on the right, unfortunately, because you go back to like 2018, 2019, nobody cared. I think you had huge levels of support for it, but we have seen backsliding because a lot of people have said effectively, dang, that slope was kind of slippery after all. Now, I will point out that many of the predictions that were made about what would happen if gay marriage was legalized have never come true, have not come even close to. We told that bestiality would be legalized. We were told that abusing children would be legalized, that polygamy would be legalized. All these things haven't come true. However, it is true that we've moved on to more radical territory with the trans agenda, right? After that was accomplished. Right. And I think the reasons for that are complicated, but I can understand why people would feel like, wow, this slope has been kind of slippery, but gay marriage isn't the problem, right? We can critique the extreme trans activism or push back on different things. Yet still, that doesn't mean you don't have to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater, is what I'm saying, I guess.
Well, anything can be a slippery slope in the wrong hands. The whole slippery slope argument when it comes to any political issue to me is just a fallacy, because you're arguing something that hasn't happened yet and potentially won't even happen. So I don't believe in, denying somebody their rights just because somebody could potentially abuse them. Your rights come with risk. That's what happens in a free country. People have their rights and they can abuse them, or they can use them responsibly, but that risk is associated with freedom. So the slippery slope argument has always just been something that irks me to my core, because it's really anti-liberty and anti-freedom, because it negates the fact that risk comes with that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, up next, Clarkson, did you follow the lesbian bar TikTok drama?
I saw parts of this, but I couldn't keep up with it, but I'm glad that we're covering it now.
We're going to walk through it from the beginning to the end, step by step, and I want to get your thoughts on it. But folks, this absolutely went super viral on TikTok. I kept seeing it everywhere. And I finally was like, all right, what the heck is going on? I tracked down the original video that sparked all this controversy. Let's roll it and see what had TikTok up in arms so badly.
Friday night, I went to my first lesbian bar. I was about to go home early, but then my friend who's a lesbian came over to the bar at the restaurant we were at and said, I'm going to go to this bar. Do you want to come? And I was like, absolutely, why not? We got there and I was having so much fun. Everyone was so nice. The music was all like Renee rap and I was living my best life. Until one of our guy friends wanted to meet up with us, and he comes into the bar for quite literally 2 minutes. Literally wanted to come in, say hello, and leave. Girl approaches him pretty soon after he walks in and goes, what are you doing here? To be honest, I was a little taken aback, because as a straight woman in a gay bar, and also a straight woman who goes to a male gay bar, I've never felt like that before or been approached like that. The girl goes on to say, like, I've been coming to this bar for 10 years and blah, blah, blah. Basically, like, my friend didn't belong there. Now I get it. It's a gay bar for women. But the amount of very obviously flamboyantly gay men that were in that bar that were not being approached and yelled at was wild. And I'm just curious, your thoughts on this, because I was like, I looked at her and I was nice until I wasn't. But the way she spoke to us, like, as a group, and I looked at her and I was like, he is with us, he's good. Like, she was not having it. She did not want him in that bar at all, and I get it. But, like, there's no rules against that. Unless there are, and I didn't see them. But we left soon after because we had already been there for a while, and he just literally came to say hello. But I'm just curious, like, are straight males not allowed to go to a lesbian bar? I'm genuinely curious. Like I said, this was my first time going to a legit lesbian bar. So please, enlighten me. I guess, like, he's probably never going to go back there again because it really wasn't worth the drama. But I just feel it was a little dramatic.
You know, for a movement of inclusivity, we are very exclusive. That's all I have to say about this. I mean, I get wanting to have your own space, but I can't get behind the idea of excluding someone from a public space because of their sexuality. To me, it just seems very hypocritical. I wouldn't want somebody to tell me not to go into an establishment because I'm gay, so I wouldn't do the same thing to straight people.
No, and what I do find funny is like, well, how do you know how he identifies? How do you know he doesn't identify as a two-spirited, non-binary lesbian on the inside? Like, under their own rubric and rules, I don't really see how you can justify this. But more than anything, you know, it sounds like not that big a deal. Like, just this kind of petty drama that you see on TikTok. The reaction that people had to this, they were debating this like it was, you know, a huge controversy in queer theory and oppression and patriarchy and all these things. Take a listen to this supercut of a couple of the reactions I found funniest.
Are straight males not allowed to go to a lesbian bar?
Allowed? Yes. Welcome? No, at least not by me.
And your straight male friend was taking up so much square footage in that tiny bar. In fact, you were taking up so much square footage in that tiny bar. The only difference is that people just assumed you were a lesbian. It was like a physical manifestation of what we reference when we talk about taking up space in the political sense, the sociological sense, like literally physically taking up space where lesbians socialize in order to have your own fun that can be had at literally any bar in New York City. Even if people did know you were straight and were fine with you being there, the reason a straight male feels so different is because there is always this implied threat of gendered violence. Like, it's a space largely, not completely, removed from patriarchal norms, and you just like plopped a straight cis dude right in it.
Is they both mentioned how the rules don't say they can't be here. The rules allow us to be here. It's not illegal for us to be here. The rules were created to protect straight people, particularly white straight men. And as white people, but also I would encourage them as straight people to really reflect on, if you have to lean on such a patriarchal, damaging system of rules to justify your behavior, maybe you're in the gay bar because you're there to harm people. Just a thought.
So, Clarkson, I didn't think that this little story time about a lesbian gay bar was going to take us to cussing people out, to discussing the inherent violence of the patriarchal system that protects white men, to talk about taking up space and how males are inherently dangerous. But I guess I shouldn't be that surprised. Like, this is TikTok after all.
I mean, yeah, you could have put a lot of money on that it was going to go this way. I just hope that these people keep that same energy when Grindr, releases their new terms of service. Because I haven't seen any posts. I mean, I'm blocked probably by a couple of them, but I haven't seen any posts from these creators dogging on Grindr for discriminating against gay people. But God forbid a straight man goes into a public space to say hi to a friend. I mean, it's insane. I don't know. Are these people just not thinking, or are they saying it for clicks? They're just blatant hypocrites. They're blatant hypocrites. I could not do that to somebody based off. I'm not going to discriminate against someone based off of their sexuality. Just because I want to have my own space. I
don't go to gay bars or anything, but I can certainly say back in the day when I did, it was annoying when you had half the room was full of like straight women on their night out or whatever. But ultimately, like, it's, I think, frankly illegal to bar people from public establishments because of their sexual orientation. And these spaces are open to all, even if they're themed and they're meant for a certain type of person or community, like they are allowed to be there. So to be so hostile to them over this, let alone to like start a multi-day viral discourse about it as if it's some deep insight into like patriarchal heteronormative violence rather than just some woke Karen who berated a random dude. Like, I really don't get it. I don't understand why TikTok finds this stuff so deep. Like, it's really not that deep, babe.
No, and I mean, I still go to gay bars, and there are a lot of straight women there. But the thing, I don't get annoyed when I see people, like straight people at gay bars. They just have to be okay with, if a straight man goes into a gay bar, he has to be okay with the fact that he's going to get hit on. Don't go to a gay bar if you don't want to get hit on, because if you go to a gay bar, the assumption is that you are gay. Same thing with straight women. If you're going to a gay bar and you're fine with, being hit on and saying, no, thanks, like I'm straight, whatever, then by all means, come on in, because that's the whole purpose of a gay bar, is to have people be able to interact romantically or potentially romantically without the fear of being turned down because the other person's straight or whatever might happen. So if you're okay with that, by all means, come to the bar. But this idea that we only need to be surrounded by gay people is, I think, representative of the actual like pride movement as a whole. It's become so exclusive that it completely excludes the majority of the population, which is why people are starting to, turn their face at it and say, I don't want to hear about this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Now, we actually have an update from the woman who was accused of shaming the straight man for arriving. Let's take a listen to that.
What are you doing here? To be honest, I was a little taken aback because as a straight woman.
So that video is actually about me. I'm that lesbian. So I just wanted to provide some context on what happened from my perspective. So I was at Cubbyhole, been going to this bar for 8 years since I moved to New York. I actually met my wife there. I was waiting in the bathroom line, minding my own business, and there was a dude standing in front of the bathroom. I tapped him on his shoulder. I was like, excuse me, you're kind of in the way, whatever. I was not trying to start conflict, anything like that. He turns around. He seemed a little bit grumpy. So I was like, okay, dude, are you even here with anyone? Like, what are you doing in this bar? And he points to his friend, a girl who seems pretty queer to me, not the girl who made that other video. And she's like, he's with me. I'm like, okay, cool. I turn around, continue to wait in line, really had to pee. And then this guy comes to me and he goes, well, if I wasn't here with someone, would that be a problem? And I say, absolutely. Like, yes, it would be a problem. This guy, the girl in that video, some other girls, they all jump at me and they're like, what? Like, why would you say that? That's so messed up, blah, blah, blah. These people start coming at me. And I'm just in the bathroom. I'm there celebrating a friend's birthday. I want literally nothing to do with straight people, which is why I'm in Cubbyhole in the first place. And, I'm just like, hey, okay, this is a queer bar. We don't have a lot of spaces. I've been coming to this bar for a long time. It's a special place for me. It's also a safe place for me. And I have seen a lot of cis straight guys come into this bar and cause problems. Like, it's a known thing. It happens at Cubbyhole. It happens at Henrietta's. It happens at Stonewall. There are straight dudes that come into these bars specifically because they're trying to pick up girls. So I wasn't trying to instigate anything. I was just trying to hey, safety check, They got on my face. I just wanted to pee. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to the bathroom. I go in there and I just tried to de-escalate. I go back to my friend. There's more stuff that happens, but I'm just going to leave it at that. I do think that if you're going into a queer space, you should be respectful of that. And you should keep in mind that there are very limited spaces, especially for lesbians and queer women, where we can feel safe, where we can go. And there's literally the Lesbian Bar Project. If you've not heard about it, go look into it because there are so few spaces. And honestly, I'm not going to apologize for protecting them. I just get heated, but that's pretty much it. I'm Katie and I'm that lesbian, and sorry, but actually not sorry.
Okay, so does that change anything for you? Do you feel more sympathetic to her side of the story?
No, because she said she wanted nothing to do with straight people. So I have a hard time believing that it was just this, her just wanting to go to the bathroom and just coming across this grumpy guy. She had to add grumpy to demonize him at the beginning. So then the viewers can, start to think he's this bad old straight man. there's nothing wrong with what he said. Would it be a problem if he was not there with anyone? No, it shouldn't be. But you can tell that she detests straight men for some reason. And she took it out on that man, and now she is getting clout for it.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with the way she's like acting like maleness is intrinsically dangerous. I mean, imagine, and I understand that male violence against women is sadly too common and is, something many of these women might have had problems with and trauma with. I totally get that. But in the same way that we would all agree that it's wrong to like get scared around black people because a black person robbed you once, it's like not okay to treat all men as dangerous just because some men are. Like, I don't know how that's just normalized or okay now. Like, that is stereotyping, it is discrimination, and it's not okay just because the target is white men. I also find a couple things she says here like either non-believable or nonsensical. First off, straight men coming to lesbian bars regularly to hit on girls. I'm just going to put on my skeptical face on that one. Wouldn't be very logical to go there to do that. So the math's not mathing for me.
No, I'm sure. I highly doubt that any sane straight man is going to a lesbian bar in hopes of getting lucky, because he would have to be mentally challenged. that is like the dumbest. If one thing men are known doing, it's finding an avenue to get laid. Okay, going to a lesbian bar reduces your chances of getting laid. What man would be doing that?
It doesn't make sense. The other thing I don't have sympathy for, and I'm curious, is like there are barely any lesbian bars. Like the only reason there are more gay bars than lesbian bars is because more gay people want to go to bars and will show up if gay bars open. Like this is literally just a market thing. If lesbians wanted to go to bars in large amounts, capitalists would open lesbian bars and take their money. It's not a thing of like victimization or oppression against lesbians whatsoever. It's literally just supply and demand.
Right. Women don't want to go out on the weekend and go to bars.
At the same rate.
Or lesbian at the same rate as gay men do. And I mean...
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Gay men... Right. No, there's nothing... honestly, gay men could go a little less. Yes. But that's just the truth. It's basic economics and free markets. And this is something that people who are ingrained with left-wing ideology don't understand. They don't understand that sometimes things aren't fair because we've made them unfair. And that's just what this is. It's lesbians don't really want to go to bars that much. And I know that's the way the cookie crumbles. And maybe you feel like you're being slighted. But if you feel like you want to, go to a bar, then create one. That's what America's about.
Yeah, completely agree. What I found kind of disturbing about this was that the original creator got so much hate and so much backlash for telling her story about how they were like thrown shade for being straight at the lesbian bar, this woman, that she actually apologized. Let's take a listen to that.
I'm also maybe a little stressed over the video that's going viral on my page right now because I didn't mean any ill will by it, and the lesbians of TikTok are coming for me, and I'm sorry for that. I really just had a genuine question. I didn't know I was going to get yelled at, bombarded, screamed at. There's lots of mean things going on in those comments. So I have learned my lesson, and I will never be returning to a lesbian bar ever again. For a good reason. It's plain and simple. It's not a space for me.
So, Clarkson, progress. This is progress.
I'm so disappointed. I hate seeing people apologize. I hate it. It's so annoying. I mean, you can kind of tell that she doesn't really care that much. But like, was it necessary to apologize to these people? You're giving them, like, when you watch these videos, especially one of the creators that we reacted to, you can see in their eyes how they get like this taste of power when they start talking about straight people or white people. And then they just, you're just feeding this complex whenever you apologize to them. And I can't respect people that apologize. But then, I'm thinking this girl's from New York City. She's probably a liberal too. So it's in her nature.
But I guess I'm like, congratulations, LGBT activists of TikTok. You have now bullied this woman into apologizing, shutting up, and she's never going to go back to a lesbian bar, and she's going to feel isolated and ostracized from this community. Like, good job.
Yep.
Congrats.
And then we wonder why our acceptance is going down.
Yeah. Well, not great, but unfortunately not exactly a surprising or shocking saga for TikTok. But this was all over the Clock app, so I wanted to give our take on that little drama. And I want, for one, Clarkson, will not be going to any lesbian bars anytime soon.
Me either. It's not really my cup of tea.
And I don't know that we'd be welcome because we're inherently dangerous males.
Yeah, God forbid.
God forbid we'd be looking a little grumpy that day either.
I mean, if I take some estrogen, I'll probably be allowed.
Just put on a wig and say your pronouns are they, them, and they'll roll out the red carpet for you. Then all of a sudden, the male violence thing won't be such a concern because these people are totally inconsistent.
You don't even need a wig anymore. I'm going to say I'm non-binary.
Yeah, just a pronoun pin. All right, Clarkson, it's time for the final part of the show, everybody's favorite, where we react to woke LGBT TikToks and try not to lose too many brain cells in the process. Are you ready?
I don't know. I feel like I've already lost a lot today, but we're gonna get through it.
So I am processing some things today, so here is a rant. If you are trans, you know if you are trans. If you are trans, you cannot determine if other people are trans, because only they know if they are trans. And if you are a cis person, you absolutely, how dare you have the audacity to think that you know what the trans means, or that you know what trans people are, or what the trans experience is. No one chooses to be trans because it's trendy or because it's fun. Being trans is fucking hard. And I have so many feelings about this. So many feelings. Anyway, all this to say that anyone who tries to tell you what the your gender identity is needs to off.
Mom, come get me. I'm scared. The trans experience, he talks about it like it's Disney World. What is the trans experience? I can't do
Here's the thing. I'm also not a cat, but I know what a cat is, and I'm able to determine if someone is a cat or not.
Right. There is such thing as objective truth. And also what he said, which really annoys me about these people, he's like, it's hard being trans. It's effing hard. But they also refuse to acknowledge how addicting and how addicting the victim complex is that being trans gives you. And yes, it may be hard to be trans, but there are a lot of people who are grabbing onto this label because they like the mental privileges that it gives them, because they can blame pretty much everything in their life on being trans. And then they also get this special status within society, this victim status that they can now use in social situations. So it's not, you can't just sit here and say, yes, well, being trans is hard, so nobody would ever choose to be trans, therefore somebody could never be lying, when that's just not the case. Trans people get a lot of privileges socially in our society compared to the average straight person.
Yeah, I definitely think it can be hard to be trans in real life, but on the internet, it is rewarded. It is absolutely rewarded, especially on TikTok. And I do find it interesting that this person says, how dare anybody question your gender identity? Let's take that to its logical extreme. So can I tell this person that my pronouns are the N-word? That's my pronoun. You have to say it. You have to say it and refer to me as that. And who are you to question my gender identity? Obviously not. Obviously that's absurd. But they really, I think this is a weaponization tactic they use to shut down debate on these issues. Because guess what, babe? Making some assumptions here. You're also not a billionaire, but something tells me you have feelings on the proper taxation of billionaires, right? That's kind of how this whole democracy thing works. But when it's convenient for them, only the affected people can speak up about an issue. But when it's not convenient, when it's them popping off about everything under the sun, of course, that's fine. That's allowed.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. If my opinions on trans people aligned with his, then my opinion would be totally valid. But because they don't, suddenly, oh gosh, you're cis. You don't get to have an opinion. And it doesn't make any sense. But I can't expect these people to make much sense. So, I mean...
But what do we know? Yeah. We're just cis white gays, which in 2024 are basically the devil, according to these TikTokers, apparently.
In relation to my last video, the biggest clowns that try to talk about transitioning and trans issues are the cisgendered gay men that are like, as a gay man, no. No, you don't get a talk. Your identity as a cisgendered gay man gives you zero credibility to talk about transitioning and trans issues, okay? So, if you see a cisgendered gay man saying, as a gay man, and then say some transphobic shit, just know that their opinion is invalid because they can't have like an actual credible opinion on transitioning and trans issues.
Since when does identity give you a credible opinion? That I don't get it. It's like, so if I was trans, no matter what my opinion is, it's credible.
I'm old enough to remember when knowledge and intelligence gave you a credible opinion, not what box you check on the fucking census.
Right. Logic and reason are what make opinions credible. It's not even the person who says it that makes an opinion credible. And that's what I don't get here. How can you look at somebody and say, oh, well, you don't have this specific characteristic, your opinion is invalid? When what? I genuinely try every day. I try every day to understand these people, but I have no idea what goes on in their brains, if anything. I have no idea. What is he talking
about? It's like that
about?
Buzz Lightyear meme, no signs of life detected.
Right. Like at some point when we're reacting to these, we just have to be like, what is going on? Like, what is happening in their brain? I mean, I don't know if the pink hair dye seeped in there.
It's always the hair dye. It's always the CVS hair dye.
Oh my God. I thought at least he'd have like the blonde frosted tips like the last one, but the pink, I guess that's all you need nowadays to be trans.
So the thing is, this person, I have a couple issues with it, but it's like, all right, if you think gay people don't have a right to speak on trans issues, well then take your tea and make your own letter and stop riding our acceptance and riding our coattails and conflating us all when it's for your benefit. But now we can't speak when it's our view on your side of the party. No, like that doesn't make sense. That's inconsistent.
And these are the same people who will sit in our comment sections and say, Black trans women of color gave you your rights. You owe us everything. Blah, blah, blah. And then in that same breath, they won't even acknowledge the gay people who have opened the door for the T to be added to the alphabet. So yes, we can have an opinion, babes.
And also a lot of gay people, this isn't my experience, but I've spoken to a lot of gay people who grew up gender non-conforming and who were tomboys or tom girls or whatever, or very effeminate young men. And now, and they went through puberty and ended up being totally comfortable with their sex, but same-sex attracted, but gay. And now they look back and they're like, holy crap, under today's crazy culture and standards, I would have been transitioned, and that totally wouldn't have been necessary. And so, of course, those people have the right to speak on this just as much as you do.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, when I grew up, I had two older sisters. I would wear their dresses. I had a little buzz cut. I'd be in my mom's makeup. And this sounds really bad, but they used to call me a little girl with cancer because I looked like cancer. Like, that's what they would call me because I would only wear girls' clothes. And I look at this and I get worried for the youth of our generation, for the youth that will end up being gay, who are gonna, wake up one day and realize they don't have breasts anymore because they took them off when they were 14 and they'll never be able to breastfeed their child, or they stopped their puberty and otherwise had a very weird childhood that's affected them psychologically that they can't get back. And it worries me. So we have every right to have opinions on trans issues when the trans issues start to affect us in ways like this. And even if they didn't affect us, we still have every right
that's
to have
literally
opinion because we're an individual.
I'm sure this person has opinions on Israel-Palestine, right? And guess what, babe? From as far as I know, you're not Israeli or Palestinian. You've never stepped foot in that country, right? So that's literally how a democracy works, is people all have opinions on society and government, and they're not more or less legitimate because of their immutable characteristics. In fact, that's a fundamentally bigoted thing to suggest. Look, I'm really sick of this, but what are we to say anything? We're just the evil cis white gays. But it might help us get a job, Clarkson. So take a listen to this one.
For my gays out there, here's how to take advantage of being gay to get a job. And I'm not just talking any job, I'm talking prestigious, 6 figures. This is the secret, diversity programs. I googled gay recruiting program NYC bank, and the first thing that pops up is an entire long ass list of every single bank that has a diversity program, and it's pretty much every prestigious bank. The reason I know this is the key is because I've done it not once, but twice. My sophomore and junior year internships I got just for being gay, and then my junior year I got a return offer, so it turned into a full-time role. Let me paint a picture for you of how much easier it is to get into one of these big companies through a diversity program. A normal recruiting cycle would be like 5 rounds of interviews. You're talking like case studies, technical interviews, like market evaluations, whole nine. When I recruited at a big New York City bank for my junior year internship, I had 2 things to do. One was like a conference, which was literally just sitting there and listening to people talk. The other was 2 30-minute behavioral interviews. It was like as easy as it possibly could have been, because these companies get slammed for having a lack of diversity and they're still way behind where they should be, so they need the gays. So if you enter the recruiting process and you're like, hey, I'm gay, they will make it easier for you and you'll have a much higher chance of getting the job.
Imagine your entire career being banked on the fact that you sleep with men. That is so embarrassing.
I would be so embarrassed to admit this. And he's like, oh my God, let me tell you about this cool thing. No, babe, you should be deeply ashamed of this. You just admitted that you scammed the system, exploited affirmative action to get jobs you didn't deserve because you can't cut it on your merit, and had to ride unrelated, irrelevant demographic characteristics to career success. And you're acting like that's cool? No, that's embarrassing and a pathetic sign of how much wokeness has infected business, that they're actually making hiring decisions about who you love at home in your personal life rather than, are you good at the job? Are you qualified? Like this is a sickness, and you're proudly boasting about exploiting it on TikTok. It baffles me. It disgusts me, honestly.
I mean, I have to say, like, I don't think he's exploiting the system at all. I think that he's taking advantage of it the way that it was supposed to be created. I mean, that's in essence what these diversity programs do, and we've allowed it. So what's to stop a gay person of taking advantage of it? In the same way that we have tax loopholes that, you know, if you can take advantage of a tax loophole, you're going to take advantage of it.
I would want to make it on my own merit. I wouldn't want to take advantage of that.
As an individual, I would as well. I just think, you know, people who take advantage of some parts of the system, it's not necessarily taking advantage of it to me. I think that our system is just backwards as hell. Sorry for the language. And that's where I take issue with it. Because, I mean, that's what these diversity programs do. That's what affirmative action does, is they take people who are otherwise unqualified and put them in these positions. And it's like, it's shocking to see someone so happy about it, because most people have enough self-respect to want to make it on their own merit. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is the culture and country that we've created in modern day America.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. I mean, the America I want to live in is where you succeed or thrive purely based on merit. Your sexuality, your skin color, your gender, these things don't hold you back like they used to. They shouldn't, right? You should never be denied a job because of who you are married to or because of what you look like or anything like that. But you shouldn't be given one. You shouldn't have a different process. Like, that's crazy.
Well, I mean, if you're not a beautiful person, you probably should be discriminated against if you're going to be a model. But I mean, that's a separate conversation.
Occupation, occupation specific. Like, obviously, it's fair to discriminate against the morbidly obese for professional sports, right? Like, but in general, especially with something like banking, none of that should matter. It should be about your merits, your education, your background, your connections. And I guess I kind of disagree with you that, like, I do think it's wrong for individuals to participate in evil systems. And I think...
Oh, I do too. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong on an individual level for me, but I can't sit here and say that, like, I mean, I take advantage of a tax loophole that maybe I shouldn't get and that maybe be deemed unfair. So it's hard for me to sit here and
I get what you're saying.
Totally demonize this person.
I think we can agree, like, it shouldn't exist. I guess you know what? Kudos to this person, at least for the transparency, because what most people do is they do this, but then pretend like they got there all on their own merit.
Right. And then when we say this is what diversity programs are doing, everybody's like, no, that's not the case because nobody admits it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
It's like when Harvard was sued for affirmative action and went all the way to Supreme Court, and they're like, no, we don't have quotas or whatever. And then it came out in the wash. They literally basically had de facto quotas, and that you needed a difference of hundreds of points difference on the SAT to get in if you were Asian versus white versus black. Like, it was openly discriminatory. And that's what a lot of this stuff is. And I find it really unfortunate too, because it also stigmatizes the people that did get there on their merits. Like, what if, like, now, you know, people will see this video and then they see a gay person at their office the next day in corporate America, and they're like, I wonder if he's a diversity hire. And for all you know, that person did get hired on their merit. And now it creates this, you know, this cloud that hangs over everyone. And it's just a total attack on meritocracy. And it also like reinforces these things, this sexuality, the race, the gender, all of it, these kinds of things in the name of diversity. They further accentuate the meaningfulness of these categories. And when I think what we should want is for them to fade into irrelevance, like hair color or eye color. But when you're literally prioritizing people for jobs based on their sexuality, of course that's going to polarize groups of people along their sexuality. It's going to reinforce those differences. And I think even from a progressive perspective, that's not actually progressive at all.
No, I mean, it completely goes against equality. We're not fighting for equality anymore. We're fighting for privilege. This is a privilege of being gay. So, I mean, I'm just getting really tired of people saying that somehow, I mean, I guess if you're white and gay, you're not oppressed anymore because we're losing our oppression card. But just in essence that your sexuality, your skin color, and all of these different, you know, immutable characteristics somehow deem you to be oppressed in society when these programs are quite literally privileges. So if we're going to talk about privilege, I think we should start with the systems and the institutions we're creating that create privilege. And this is one based off of immutable characteristics.
All right, up next, this non-binary TikToker thinks all the concerns about LGBT indoctrination in school are total nonsense. Let's take a listen.
I'm a non-binary, bisexual, learning specialist and teacher. These are the conversations that you're very afraid of.
Are you a boy or a girl?
I was born a boy. Good question. Back to math, though.
Why do you wear makeup?
I like the way it makes me look. Pretty simple. Same reason why other people wear it.
Are you married? Do you have a girlfriend?
I can't answer that. That's personal information. It doesn't have to do with school.
Your makeup is pretty. Am I allowed to wear makeup?
Thanks for saying it's pretty. I'm not allowed to give you makeup at school. That's up to you and your parents.
Why does your makeup make you so, like, tan?
I'm actually black. I'm Italian and Nigerian. Good question.
Do I call you Mr. or Miss?
You could just call me Desmond, but in the end, I can't control what you call me. All jokes and reindeer antlers aside, the conversations that you're so worried about are very, very easy and very, very fast. Kids are not as confused as you think they are. I'm a guy who wears makeup. You want to call it non-binary gender fluid? Fine. And here's the kicker. Kids don't actually care about sexuality. They're not actually going to ask. And if they do, pretty simple to tell them that they've overstepped. And that's a personal matter that doesn't have anything to do with school. The indoctrination you're afraid of isn't real. I hope this helps.
Look, here's my thing about this video. If all non-binary or trans or LGBT teachers handled the questions this way, there would be no issue. They're really, like, nobody would have any grounds for complaints whatsoever. But on this show, we have played clip after clip after clip after clip of teachers teaching kindergartners about non-binary, they, them, gender neutral, the sexuality types, all this stuff that's inappropriate.
And I'm a preschool teacher. So instead of using Mr. or Miss, we use mix. One of my kiddos came up to me and he goes, "Are you mixed up?"
If my 5 to 7-year-old art students can correctly use they, them pronouns for their peers and accept non-binary kids without batting an eye, adults should fucking be able to do it.
I take every single student at face value, and I just immediately respect whatever they say. He, him, and I want to go by T-Rex. He's T-Rex for the rest of the year.
One of the kids referred to me as a girl, and one of my kids was like, "Jamie doesn't have a gender. Jamie's not a girl."
I like the way that has me is so emotional. She's 8. So awesome. That was just like so awesome.
So it's like this feels gaslighty to pretend that that's how all teachers handle it. If that was actually how all the teachers handled those questions, then there would be no problem. But that's not. Like, this might be how you handle it, but it's totally not how it's
Right.
handled all the time.
No, not at all. And I mean, I liked what this creator had to say. I liked the TikTok, but like you said, we've watched this. We've watched people on teachers say, "Call me Mix" instead of Mr. or Mrs. And then they have the flags in their classroom, and they're telling kids to choose their pronouns, and they're talking about gender identity and going into deep discussions that these kids are not ready for. And it's definitely not their business to do so. So no, that's not what's happening. Like, it's great that you have taken it upon yourself to be a responsible teacher and not, parent kids where you shouldn't, but that's not what's happening at all.
No, at least not in every case. We've seen many. It's really hard to know how common this stuff is. Like, we don't have survey data or anything, but we see video after video after video of people pushing openly ideological, really in the weeds stuff on all of these topics on kids in the classroom or whatever. I mean, we've reacted to children's cartoons created by governments that are telling little kids that there's no such thing as boys and girls. Like, obviously, not everybody's handling it the way that Desmond, this TikToker, is handling it, because if they all were, then there really wouldn't be an issue. But this stuff feels gaslighting because simultaneously they're making two claims at once. One is nobody's talking to kids about sexual orientation or gender identity in schools, but also laws that say you can't talk to kids about sexual identity and gender identity in schools are really bad. Well, if that was actually true, that nobody was talking about it, then the law wouldn't matter. You wouldn't care. Like, those two things can't really coexist.
No, then all of the concerns in these bills wouldn't be a problem. We'd be like, okay, that's fine because we're not doing that. But that hasn't been the reaction. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. All
right, well, that's about as many LGBT TikToks as I can handle in one sitting without incurring permanent brain damage. I hope you got a kick out of it.
I need to go watch some football or something.
Anything else. But Clarkson, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. Everybody go sign up and check out his YouTube channel, and we'll have to have you on again soon. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Damage Control podcast. If you got this far, you must have found something interesting or insightful. So do like or comment with your thoughts, and do consider subscribing and sticking around. And with that, I'll see you all next week. But if you're not sick of me yet and you want more Damage Control content, you can go here or here to see other recent episodes you might just enjoy.